It was a grey and brooding morning in London, the fog curling through the narrow streets like the restless fingers of some unseen spectre. I had just returned from my rounds at St. Cole. I might Vado muse when I found myself once again at the familiar doorway of 21B Baker Street. Inside, the familiar scent of tobacco smoke and the faint tang of chemical reagents greeted me, and there he was, my companion, my guide into the labyrinthine corridors of deduction, Sherlock Holmes.
Hmm. Watson. You are punctual for once, which suggests that you have encountered nothing untoward along your rounds. Elementary, you see. A man's habits betray him more often than he perceives.
I must admit, Holmes, I did observe the usual congestion at Charing Cross, but I scarcely believe that qualifies as anything remarkable. Your deductions, as always, elude me, for I can scarcely see how such mundane occurrences could reveal the character of a man.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Observe the angle of his hat, the wear on the soles of his boots, the faint smudge of ink upon his cuff. These are but trifles to the untrained eye, yet they speak volumes if one knows how to listen. Today, however, I suspect our attention will be directed not to the streets of London, but to a tale far older and far darker.
I settled into my accustomed chair, the leather creaking beneath my weight. Humps busied himself with a vial of some pungent chemical, inhaling its aroma as though the very air contained clues invisible to mortal sight. He had always insisted that every case, no matter how trivial it appeared, contained a logic that awaited only the patient application of reason.
Watson, we are to receive a visitor, one whose story is woven with threads of mystery and regret. You may prepare yourself for a tale of hidden identities and past transgressions.
Hardly had he spoken when the door opened, and a gentleman of distinguished bearing entered. His face was lined, not with age alone, but with some unspoken anxiety, the kind that haunts a man long after the immediate peril has passed.
Good morning, gentlemen. I trust I am not intruding.
On the contrary, sir, your presence here is both expected and necessary. Pray, take a seat.
The visitor introduced himself as Mr. Jonathan Hargraves, a man whose eyes held the restless vigilance of someone who had seen far too much, yet revealed far too little. As he seated himself, I noticed a tremor in his hands, the slight hesitation before he spoke, subtle cues that Holmes would no doubt detect with his usual acuity.
Now, Mr. Hargraves, you may speak freely. Every detail is of consequence, no matter how insignificant it may appear to you.
It is perhaps a strange story, but I have been advised that you, Mr. Holmes, possess a talent for untangling mysteries beyond the reach of ordinary men. It concerns my father, now long deceased, and a secret he carried to his grave, a secret whose revelation may yet alter the course of my own life.
You may rest assured, sir, that we shall listen attentively. As Mr. Hargraves began his tale, Holmes reclined slightly, eyes narrowed in that familiar pose of concentration, while I, faithful chronicler and witness, prepared to record every word. His story began not in London, but in the distant days of his youth, when he was a student at the University of Oxford.
My father, Mr. Holmes, was once a man of great promise, though circumstances of his youth drew him into associations both curious and, at times, dangerous. He received a letter, one of secrecy and import, which set in motion a chain of events that would define his later years.
Letters often carry more weight than their mere words. The choice of language, the style of writing, even the type of paper can reveal origin, intent, and emotional state. Do you still possess this letter?
Alas, it is lost to me, though I remember its contents well enough to recount them. It spoke of a ship, a voyage, and a man who had suffered an injustice. The instructions were clear. Follow the course indicated, trust no one beyond those named, and remember the price of betrayal.
Holmes tapped his fingers against the arm of his chair, a rhythm both methodical and contemplative. To him, the narrative was more than anecdote. It was a sequence of logical signposts, each awaiting careful examination.
Pattern emerges, Watson. Observe a letter of secret import, instructions regarding trust, and the mention of a voyage. Elementary deduction suggests that your father's associates were likely men of influence, perhaps men accustomed to operating in shadows.
Shadows, yes, but what of the motive? Was it purely financial, or did it concern matters of principle, of honor perhaps?
A shrewd question, an intervalue, salved cur. Yet motives, Watson, are discerned as much from hesitation and phrasing as from the events themselves. The letters freezing. Remember, the price of betrayal reveals not only caution but fear, suggesting that your father's associates had both reason and opportunity to commit acts of deception.
Indeed, Mr. Holmes, I was a man named Gloria Scott, a ship's captain who became entangled in the affairs of my father's companions. The man was both trustworthy and cunning, though his reputation later suffered greatly.
A proper name is a beacon in the fog. Gloria Scott, you say? We shall find this man, and in him, perhaps, the key to all that remains hidden.
I could see the spark in Holmes's eye, the very spark that had guided him through the densest London fogs and the most obscure crimes. I, for one, felt a familiar mixture of apprehension and excitement. This was no ordinary case. The air of history, secrecy, and moral ambiguity promised a journey as intellectually thrilling as it was emotionally taxing.
My father, in his final years, confided to me that this secret, this very tale of the Gloria Scott was one he had hoped would die with him, but certain circumstances have now compelled me to speak. I fear that some who remain in the shadows may yet act to silence the truth.
Fear, Mr. Hargraves, is a companion to those who walk in secrecy. Yet in our profession, fear must be replaced by observation. Every detail, no matter how trifling, is a step toward illumination. Tell me, Watson, what do you observe about our friend here?
His hands betray the tremor of nerves, yet his eyes are steady, though wary. There is a subtle tension in his posture, as if he balances between trust and caution. It is evident he bears the weight of secrets long concealed.
Precisely. And note, Watson, the choice of words, compelled rather than wished. Compulsion is rarely born of mere whim. It suggests a force, external or internal, that demands action.
Thus began the unraveling of a story that would take us far from the familiar streets of London into a world of youthful indiscretions, maritime ventures, and the enduring consequences of past mistakes. I, ever the chronicler, could only marvel at Holmes's ability to perceive the architecture of human behavior in the subtlest of details.
There is more, gentlemen, though I hesitate. The events I shall recount are not for the faint of heart. They concern loyalty, treachery, and the inexorable hand of fate that shapes a man's life beyond his control.
Hesitation is natural, Mr. Hargraves. Yet remember, the first step to clarity is the articulation of uncertainty. Speak freely, and we shall navigate this labyrinth together.
And so, with the fog pressing against the windows as if eager to eavesdrop, Hargraves began the chronicle of his father's youth, a tale of ambition, a vessel named the Gloria Scott, and the men whose choices would reverberate across decades. I leaned forward, pen poised, heart quickened, for I knew that in the hands of Sherlock Holmes, even the most tangled of histories would reveal its hidden logic. Hollow!
It began, as I have said, at Oxford. My father, then a young man of promise and curiosity, was approached by a certain group of gentlemen men whose intellect rivaled his own, yet whose moral compass was uncertain. They spoke of enterprise, of fortune, and of a venture most extraordinary, a ship to traverse distant waters under the name of Gloria Scott.
The choice of a vessel is rarely accidental. Ships, like their masters, carry signatures, patterns in naming, design, and purpose that reflect intention. We must learn all we can of this Gloria Scott, for she is the vessel in which secrets were both hidden and transported.
And thus, the stage was set. The ship, the young men, the secrets, they all converged into a tale that would test Holmes's genius and my own resolve to comprehend the extraordinary mechanisms of human deduction. Outside, the fog lingered, indifferent to the unfolding drama within, as if London herself were holding her breath in anticipation. Holmes, I confess, I am both intrigued and uneasy. The story seems to contain more than mere criminality. It hints at betrayal and the kind of moral ambiguity that challenges even your formidable insight.
Precisely, Watson. And it is in the gray spaces of morality, in the interstices between loyalty and treachery, that true deduction is exercised. We shall proceed carefully, noting every sign, every hesitation, every glimmer of truth until the entire pattern is revealed.
And with that, our first conversation ended, though in my mind, the gears of curiosity were already turning. The Gloria Scott, a name that would come to haunt generations, beckoned us toward a mystery whose depths promised both revelation and peril. Little did I know that in the coming days we would travel far beyond mere letters and recollections, plunging into a story of such intricacy that every deduction, every observation would be tested to its utmost limit. The morning fog had lifted slightly from the streets of London. The house, yet within the walls of 221B Baker Street, the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. Holmes had already set to work, spreading maps and charts across the table, his eyes tracing routes as though the lines themselves contained secrets waiting to be discovered.
Watson, observe carefully. Every voyage, every interaction of these young men at Oxford is a node in the network of human behavior. Patterns repeat themselves, sometimes subtly, sometimes with glaring clarity. The first step is always observation.
Indeed, Holmes, but it is difficult to see the pattern when the events themselves are clouded by time and memory.
True, but memory, however imperfect, is like a window into the past. It reflects what is significant, though filtered through emotion. Mr. Hargraves, pray continue. Tell us of your father's days at Oxford and the companions who surrounded him.
As I have said, it began with a circle of young men, brilliant and ambitious, and striving for distinction in scholarship and enterprise. Among them was my father, John Scott, though he was known at the time simply as Scott. These men were bound together by intellect, but also by ambition and perhaps by a shared sense of risk.
Holmes leaned forward, fingers steepled, eyes bright with the reflection of a mind already piecing together unseen connections. I watched him closely, ever eager to learn and to see how the theory of deduction would illuminate the events of decades past.
Ambition, intellect, and risk. These are the trinity that often directs the course of men into the shadows. Tell me, Watson, what do you deduce from Mr. Hargraves' phrasing?
He emphasizes both intellect and risk, and yet there is an undercurrent of unease, a viliolte. One suspects that the ventures they undertook were not entirely lawful, or at least not entirely safe.
Precisely. And that unease, Watson, is the compass that points us to the nucleus of the mystery. The Gloria Scott, it appears, was not merely a vessel, but a stage upon which the complexities of human ambition were to play out.
My father's companions were eager to embark upon a venture abroad, one that promised wealth but carried the weight of moral compromise. Ha! The vessel was prepared in secrecy, its construction and outfitting known only to those involved. Gloria Scott was to sail under the guise of trade, yet her true purpose was concealed even from many of her own crew.
Holmes picked up a small magnifying glass, turning it slowly over a chart of England's southern coast. His eyes flicked to a series of port towns and then to the rivers that fed them. He traced a finger along each line, as if by touching the paper he could summon the very events of the past to speak aloud.
A hidden voyage, yes, and one carefully orchestrated. Observe, Watson, the choice of ports, minor harbors easily overlooked, yet sufficiently accessible. These men sought discretion, not merely speed. The nature of their enterprise required concealment as much as ambition.
And yet, Holmes, if their enterprise was secret, why involve so many? Each additional participant increases the risk of exposure.
Indeed, Watson, a truth often overlooked by those who plot is that human nature is inclined to betrayal, especially when fear or greed intervenes. More participants increase the probability that some thread will unravel.
That unravelling Mr. Holmes began almost immediately. Suspicion and doubt crept among the companions, and my father, though resolute, sensed the first tremors of a larger storm. The men were ambitious, yes, but also reckless, and the shadow of what they had done or planned to do began to weigh upon them.
I noticed Holmes tapping a pen against his chin, a subtle rhythm that always indicated the machinery of his mind at work. He rarely interrupted Mr. Hargraves, preferring instead to collect the evidence of speech, gesture, and pause and let the story itself reveal the truth.
Watson, consider the elements: secrecy, fear of betrayal, the subtle choice of words. Each is a signpost. The men's conduct, their hidden anxieties, speaks more loudly than any spoken confession. And the Gloria Scott, the very ship itself, is an actor in this drama, not merely a setting.
A vessel as actor. Holmes, you speak in riddles, but I believe I understand. The ship, by its very purpose and condition, reflects the moral state of those who command it.
Exactly, Watson. And let us not overlook the captain. A man like Gloria Scott, placed in charge of such a venture, must possess both courage and discretion. One must inquire whether he was entirely loyal or whether his own interests might diverge from those of his employers.
Captain Scott, no relation to my father, was indeed a man of principle, though his career suffered when the Enterprise's true nature was revealed. He had been chosen for his integrity, yet even he could not remain entirely untouched by the currents of deception that surrounded him. But
Holmes sat back, his eyes narrowing slightly. He felt the familiar thrill of anticipation, for he was already weaving the threads of past and present into a coherent pattern, a tapestry that revealed the skeleton of human motives beneath the flesh of appearances.
Observe, Watson, the combination of ambition, secrecy, and moral compromise often leads to two outcomes: exposure or concealment. And concealment, if imperfect, leaves clues. Small actions, minor hesitations, even the choice of route or vessel become testimonies to intent.
I see, Holmes. Even the smallest detail, a smudge of ink, a hurried note, a hesitation in speech might reveal the truth if properly interpreted.
Precisely. And we must remember, Watson, that time itself does not erase these signs. They linger in memory, in documents, in the habits of men who have been shaped by them.
it was during these early days of preparation that the first incident occurred. One night, a letter arrived at my father's lodgings, unsigned, warning him against trust. Though brief, its content was enough to sow doubt and fear. My father, ever cautious, did not reveal it to the others immediately, yet the shadow it cast was long indeed. Ha 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 ha!
A warning letter, intriguing. The choice to conceal or reveal such a communication is as telling as its content. Who might have sent it? A friend? An adversary? And for what purpose?
The handwriting, perhaps, or the paper itself might offer a clue. Holmes, even in a letter, the personality of the sender may be revealed.
Yes, Watson. Paper, ink, phrasing, even the manner in which a letter is folded, all speak. And let us not overlook the timing. A nocturnal delivery suggests urgency, yet also anonymity. Someone wished to convey a warning without exposure.
That warning, though mysterious, was but the first of several. Worry on! As preparations for the voyage progressed, tensions grew. Friends became cautious, allies became suspicious, and my father, always keen of observation, began to notice subtle signs of disloyalty among his companions.
It was a time of nerves and secrets, of ambition and hidden dread. Holmes leaned forward suddenly, as if a thought had struck him like lightning.
Watson, do you realize what this implies? A circle of brilliant men, a secret enterprise, a vessel and warning letters in the dead of night. The conditions are perfect for a rupture, a revelation of truth. And the first rupture, I predict, will expose the fault lines of character more than the mechanics of the enterprise itself.
Indeed, Holmes, it seems the human heart often betrays more readily than any document or plan.
Precisely, Watson. And it is our task to follow these betrayals, to observe the slightest tremor, and to reconstruct the course of events with both precision and imagination.
And so, as Mr. Code Bears continued to recount the events of that fateful period at Oxford, I realized that we were embarking upon more than a simple investigation. It was a journey into the intricacies of human ambition, fear, and loyalty, guided by a man whose genius lay not merely in observation, but in the profound understanding of human nature itself.
The final night before departure was the most ominous. An argument erupted among the companions, words sharp and accusations veiled in civility. My father, ever prudent, chose to observe rather than intervene. And in that night's tension lay the seeds of a secret that would endure for decades, only to resurface with consequences none could foresee.
Ah, Watson, here we have it, the pivotal moment. Observe how a single night, a single argument can determine the course of many lives. And it is here, in the subtle interplay of fear, ambition, and secrecy, that we shall find the heart of the mystery.
As the story unfolded, I felt a shiver of anticipation. The Gloria Scott, now more than a mere vessel, had become a symbol of human frailty and resolve. Holmes's mind, ever vigilant, was already tracing the connections that would lead us to the ultimate revelation. I, for my part, could only record, listen, and marvel at the elegance of deduction at work. The sun rose reluctantly over Oxford, casting long shadows across the cobbled streets, and the air was thick with anticipation. The young men, eager yet anxious, prepared to embark upon a voyage that promised both fortune and danger. The ship, Gloria Scott, lay in the distant harbour, her hull freshly painted, her sails furled and waiting for command. Population. It was a vessel of promise, yet also of hidden peril, for the currents of human ambition often run as unpredictably as the sea itself.
I remember the day of departure clearly. My father, always cautious, walked the docks with measured steps. The crew assembled, their faces a mixture of excitement and unease, for they too sensed the unusual nature of their journey. Captain Scott inspected the vessel meticulously, noting every rope, every plank, every sail. It was clear he carried both responsibility and unease.
Attention to detail, Watson. Observe how Captain Scott examines his environment. Such vigilance is not merely habit, it reflects both integrity and foreknowledge of risk. A competent captain is a human barometer, sensing danger before it strikes.
Indeed, Holmes, I have often admired your ability to infer character from behavior alone, and here it seems Captain Scott's actions foreshadow the events that will unfold.
Precisely. Every movement, every glance, every hesitation can be interpreted as a signpost. And in the confined environment of a ship, these signals become even more pronounced.
The voyage began under a veil of apparent normalcy. Yet even in the first hours, my father detected subtle frictions among his companions. Words were chosen carefully, gestures measured, and yet the undercurrent of suspicion was palpable. He kept a meticulous record of conversations, noting inconsistencies and unspoken anxieties.
Holmes leaned forward, eyes glinting with curiosity. The eye, too, felt the familiar thrill, for in these early moments of tension, the first signs of human deception often reveal themselves.
Watson, observe, the interplay of ambition and fear is most acute in confined quarters. When men are isolated from familiar society and confronted with shared risk, the masks fall and their true character emerges.
And it is in these moments, Holmes, that the first clues appear subtle, perhaps, but detectable to the observant eye.
Exactly, Watson. Notice, too, the timing of actions. The chivalries, a delayed response, a pause before speech, the avoidance of eye contact. These are the first whispers of concealment.
One evening, as the vessel cut through the choppy waters of the English Channel, an incident occurred that confirmed my father's suspicions. A disagreement erupted between two companions over the handling of the ship's stores. Though framed as a minor dispute, my father perceived the tension for what it truly was, a test of loyalty and an indication of divided intent.
Holmes leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers in that rhythm which always betrayed the workings of his mind. I could see the gears of deduction already turning, assembling the fragments of memory and observation into a coherent pattern.
Ah, Watson, see how subtle signals precede overt conflict. The storage argument is but a symptom. The disease is fear and distrust among men whose ambitions are unequal.
And yet, Holmes, it seems remarkable that your perception can reach so far into the past, drawing conclusions from events that occurred decades before.
Elementary, Watson. It is the principle of constancy. Human nature, despite the passage of years, exhibits patterns. The same impulses recur, merely in different guises. Fear, ambition, loyalty, and betrayal. These are constants, not variables.
It was during this voyage that the most significant event occurred. One night, a hidden note was discovered aboard the Gloria Scott, concealed in a desk used by my father's companions. The message was cryptic, warning of consequences should the voyage proceed as planned. It was unsigned, yet its presence confirmed what my father had long suspected. Some among them were not entirely trustworthy.
The presence of the note is of paramount importance, Watson. Observe, it is not merely the content that matters, but the method of concealment, the handwriting, and the choice of desk. Each of these is a clue to intent and authorship.
And did your father reveal the note to the others immediately?
No, he did not. Prudence dictated secrecy. To reveal it prematurely might have provoked confrontation or panic. Instead, he observed carefully, noting reactions and gauging the loyalty of each companion.
Holmes's eyes sparkled with anticipation, and I could see that even now The early signals of betrayal were taking shape in his mind, awaiting only the final pieces of the puzzle.
Watson, this is a textbook example of preemptive observation. By withholding knowledge, your father ensured that natural reactions would disclose true intent. The note is a psychological instrument, not merely a communication.
Remarkable. It seems that even in the midst of uncertainty, observation allows control over the unfolding events.
Hmm, precisely. And it is here, on the deck of a ship, where isolation amplifies every signal, that deduction can be exercised to its utmost. The human mind, when confronted with secrecy and risk, cannot conceal its impulses indefinitely.
As the voyage progressed, my father's suspicions were confirmed. One night he overheard a clandestine conversation among certain companions, revealing a plot to divert the ship from its intended course. It was a betrayal calculated with precision, yet my father, ever vigilant, took note of every word.
I could feel Holmes leaning forward as if he could hear the conversation himself. His ability to perceive not merely the events, but the underlying motives was nothing short of extraordinary.
Watson, here is the moment where deduction intersects with action. The plot to divert the ship is both a symptom and a solution. By identifying the conspirators and their methods, one can predict their next move, anticipate their deception, and ensure that truth prevails.
And the captain? How did he respond to this unfolding betrayal?
Captain Scott, loyal and discerning, acted with quiet authority. He subtly reinforced my father's observations, ensuring that the conspirators remained unaware of detection, while he prepared contingencies to safeguard the vessel and its true purpose. His discretion was remarkable, and it preserved both the ship and the integrity of those loyal.
Discretion, prudence, and foresight. These are the hallmarks of a competent mind in the face of risk. Observe, Watson, how human character manifests under pressure. The loyal reveal themselves not through words alone, but through measured action and restraint.
And so the voyage of the Gloria Scott unfolded, a journey not merely across the seas, but into the labyrinth of human ambition and duplicity. Each incident, each subtle cue, each concealed letter became a piece of the greater puzzle, a puzzle that Holmes, with his unparalleled genius, would soon assemble with startling clarity.
By the time the vessel reached its intended port, my father had compiled a careful record of the actions, words, and intentions of all those involved. He had observed, noted, and interpreted, and the picture that emerged was both complex and revealing. The betrayal had been uncovered, yet the consequences were deferred, awaiting the proper moment for revelation.
Excellent, Watson. Note how preparation, observation, and timing combine to reveal truth. The Gloria Scott, in all her seeming simplicity, has served as both stage and instrument for the unfolding drama. The interplay of human character and circumstance is now laid bare.
Holmes. It is astonishing to witness the precision with which deduction illuminates the darkest corners of human action. One almost forgets that these events occurred many years ago, yet they are rendered vividly in our minds through careful observation and narrative.
That, Watson, is the power of the theory of deduction. Past, present, and motive converge in a logical tapestry. Every detail, no matter how small, has meaning. Every hesitation, every glance, every word is a clue.
And thus concluded the voyage of the Gloria Scott, at least for the moment. Yet I sensed, as Holmes carefully folded his hands and considered the narrative, that the deeper mysteries of loyalty, betrayal, and consequence were only just beginning to reveal themselves. Outside the window, the London fog had returned, curling along the streets with a patience befitting the secrets it concealed. Inside, we were poised on the threshold of revelation, guided by the singular mind of Sherlock Holmes, ever vigilant, ever discerning, and ever ready to uncover the truth hidden in plain sight. The Gloria Scott, though outwardly serene as she sailed toward distant harbors, was a vessel burdened with secrets. Below deck, the whispered conspiracies of men long past still echoed in the memory of those who had survived, and the consequences of that treachery reached far beyond the confines of any port. Mr. Hargraves' recollections now led us to the turning point, the moment when deception revealed itself and the true gravity of past actions came to light.
It was several days into the voyage when the situation escalated. One companion, emboldened by secrecy, attempted to manipulate the ship's course, arguing that a minor detour would expedite our enterprise. My father, ever vigilant, recognized the subtlety of the deception. He had anticipated such a move, having carefully observed the intentions and behaviors of each man aboard.
Subtlety, Watson, is often the truest indicator of treachery. Observe how the conspirator seeks to mask ambition with reason, and how the human mind, even under disguise, betrays itself in minor inconsistencies.
Holmes, it amazes me how you extract character from such minor actions. Come in. How an argument over a ship's course can reveal hidden motives and potential betrayal.
Elementary, Watson. The universe leaves traces of intention. It is merely a question of noticing them. A well-timed pause, a glimmer of hesitation, the insistence upon reason over protocol. These are the whispers of truth.
My father, recognizing the gravity of the situation, chose discretion. Well, confronted no one openly, but documented every detail, the arguments, the subtle gestures, and the glances exchanged among the conspirators. He understood that any overt action could precipitate disaster for all aboard.
Holmes's eyes gleamed as he listened, his fingers interlacing thoughtfully. The very way Mr. Empel, Hargraves, described his father's restraint and foresight illuminated the method of deduction that Holmes so admired: patience, observation, and careful inference.
Watson, note the significance of restraint. Often, inaction is more revealing than action. By merely observing, one gains insight into character and intent. My dear Hargraves' father understood that principle instinctively.
I can see that, Holmes. It seems that every detail, even those that seem mundane, can provide a window into human nature and potential misdeeds. Bis-
The pivotal moment came one stormy night when the vessel rocked violently in churning seas. Amidst the wind and rain, my father discovered the concealed cargo, a series of crates hidden beneath the main deck, each marked with symbols only intelligible to those involved in the conspiracy. They contained letters, documents, and objects that revealed both the criminal intentions and the identities of those complicit.
Letters and documents. Watson, observe how tangible artifacts often carry the weight of truth more decisively than any testimony. Paper seldom lies, and handwriting betrays more than the words themselves.
Holmes, you always emphasize that. Yet it is remarkable to consider that hidden traits and letters discovered by chance could expose a conspiracy that had persisted in silence for years.
Chance, Watson, is but a term for what the unobservant call fortune. In reality, what seems fortuitous is often the culmination of foresight and careful preparation.
When the conspirators realized that the secret cargo had been discovered, panic ensued. Wah! Ha! Words were exchanged, accusations thrown, and yet my father's calm demeanor and quiet authority prevented violence. Captain Scott meanwhile acted decisively, ensuring that the ship remained secure and that the conspirators were restrained by circumstance rather than force.
Holmes leaned forward, his gaze intense, as though the stormy night and its hidden documents played before him like a scene he could step into at will. I could see that the puzzle pieces were aligning in his mind, each gesture, each word, each concealment contributing to a tapestry of deduction that was uniquely his.
Watson, observe the architecture of the crisis. Panic is a revealer, fear exposes intention, and here the combination of calm observation and decisive action prevented disaster. Register. Every move, every decision, every hesitation is a clue to the moral compass and ambition of those involved.
Holmes, it seems that even amid chaos, the disciplined mind can discern the hidden logic of human action.
Exactly, Watson. And this logic, when traced carefully, allows us to reconstruct events that might otherwise appear inscrutable.
Once the storm had passed and the conspirators' intentions were exposed, my father confronted them privately. Either he offered a choice, reveal their actions and face justice, or suffer the consequences of concealment which would inevitably come. The men, recognizing both his insight and the inevitability of exposure, ultimately confessed, though reluctantly.
Confession, Watson, is often the culmination of observation and pressure. When faced with the undeniable accumulation of evidence, men reveal themselves. The careful chronicling of events, as done by Mr. Hargraves' father, is the instrument that transforms suspicion into certainty.
Holmes, it is remarkable that foresight and meticulous recording can so decisively reveal truth. It almost seems as though human nature itself conspires to disclose what must be known.
Indeed, Watson. Every action leaves a trail. Every word, every hesitation, every glance is a signpost. The past, if properly observed, cannot conceal its secrets indefinitely.
The aftermath of the discovery was profound. Some conspirators departed from my father's circle, their reputations irreparably tarnished. Others sought redemption through acts of loyalty, demonstrating the resilience of integrity even amidst previous misdeeds. Captain Scott, steadfast and honorable, ensured the safe completion of the voyage, leaving behind a legacy of prudence and courage.
Holmes's eyes gleamed as he considered the implications. The story, though concluded decades before, had left traces that extended even to the present, hints that we were now beginning to follow.
Watson, the key insight here is continuity. Actions of the past echo into the present. What occurred aboard the Gloria Scott, though remote in time, has consequences that ripple outward. Patterns of human behavior are remarkably persistent, and the principles of deduction allow us to trace those ripples across time.
And this, Holmes, is what links the past with Mr. Hargraves' current concerns.
Precisely, Watson. Observe, the combination of secrecy, betrayal, and foresight aboard the ship left a residue, a chain of cause and effect that now touches upon Mr. Hargraves' own life. Our task is to follow these threads to their logical conclusion.
It is this very connection that compelled me to seek your assistance, Mr. Holmes. I feared that unresolved matters from my father's past might yet intrude upon the present, and that only through careful observation and reasoning could the truth be safeguarded.
Could see Holmes leaning back, fingers steepled, eyes distant yet sharp, as though tracing the invisible line that linked past and present. In his mind, the tapestry of deduction was nearly complete, every thread illuminated by his acute perception.
Watson, take note. The Gloria Scott was not merely a ship, it was an instrument of revelation. Human actions, carefully observed, create a narrative that speaks across decades. And now, we stand at the threshold where past and present converge.
Holmes, it is both exhilarating and daunting to witness the precision with which you discern the patterns of human behavior. Even events separated by time and circumstance are rendered coherent under your scrutiny.
Indeed, Watson. And it is this coherence, born of observation and reasoning, that transforms uncertainty into certainty. The past provides the evidence, the present allows its interpretation, and thus the final revelations of the Gloria Scott are within reach.
As Mr. Hargraves concluded his account of the voyage, I sensed that the culmination of the mystery was near. The threads of betrayal, loyalty, and consequence were drawn taut, ready to reveal the truths that had long been concealed. Outside, the London fog continued to press against the windows, silent and patient, as if waiting for the final disclosure. Within the room, however, Sherlock Holmes, vigilant as ever, was poised to unravel the last secrets of the Gloria Scott, linking past and present with the clarity of deduction. The evening had grown heavy over London, the fog pressing against the windows with the patience of time itself. Within 221B Baker Street, the air was charged with expectation. Holmes sat with his fingers steepled, eyes fixed upon the recollections of Mr. Hargraves, as though the past were a tangible map upon which he traced every line of human behavior. I, pen poised, prepared to record the culmination of a tale that had spanned decades and crossed the oceans.
Watson, observe carefully. Every detail Mr. Hargraves has related is a piece of a larger puzzle. The voyage, the letters, the conspiracies all converge in a pattern both subtle and profound. We must now reconstruct the sequence of events in full, from motive to consequence.
Holmes, I am eager yet apprehensive. The story is already intricate, and I fear that the true revelation may test even your extraordinary powers of deduction.
Apprehension is natural, Watson, yet the process of reasoning is always illuminating. Let us proceed step by step. Mr. Hargraves, you have described the conspiracies aboard the Gloria Scott. Tell me then, who, in your father's estimation, was the architect of betrayal?
It was one of his closest companions, a man named Trevor, whose ambition and greed were concealed beneath a veneer of respectability. Though outwardly loyal, Trevor sought to divert the vessel for personal gain, motivated by the promise of fortune and influence.
Ah, Watson, note the subtle interplay of character. The combination of intellect and greed often manifests in concealed action rather than overt aggression. It is the silent manipulator, not the brazen conspirator, who is most dangerous.
Holmes, it is remarkable that you can discern these traits from such scant evidence, yet I can see the threads emerging clearly.
Indeed, Watson, observation reveals what men conceal even from themselves. The motives are written in gesture, hesitation, and choice of words. And, in this case, the evidence aboard the Gloria Scott left little to chance.
Hmm. Mr. Hargraves continued, detailing how his father confronted Trevor and the other conspirators, leveraging both foresight and calm authority to expose the plot without violence. Holmes listened intently, nodding occasionally, as if each sentence confirmed a deduction he had already made in advance.
The confrontation was tense but controlled. My father laid out the evidence he had meticulously gathered, highlighting the discrepancies in their stories, the hidden letters, and the subtle signs of disloyalty. Trevor, realizing the inevitability of exposure, confessed, revealing the full scope of the conspiracy.
Excellent. Notice, Watson, how transparency of observation compels truth. When faced with undeniable evidence, even the most cunning men yield. It is a lesson in human nature. Concealment can only delay the revelation of truth, never prevent it.
Holmes, the human element, the interplay of fear, ambition, and conscience is as critical as any tangible evidence.
Precisely, Watson. And now, let us turn to the final detail, the letters and documents hidden beneath the deck. These contain the full record of the conspiracy and the identities of all involved. Their presence confirms motive, method, and intent.
Yes, Mr. Holmes, those documents were preserved, and it is through them that my father safeguarded the truth. He ensured that the conspirators' actions would be revealed at the proper time, thereby protecting both the innocent and the integrity of the enterprise.
Watson, note the importance of preservation. Physical evidence endures where memory fades, and careful documentation transforms suspicion into certainty. Every fold of paper, every notation, every signature is a testimony to intention.
Holmes, it is extraordinary to see how past actions, carefully recorded, cast light upon the present. The echoes of those decisions resonate even decades later.
Indeed, Watson, the past is not a dead thing. It is a living guide, a sequence of cause and effect that shapes the present. By understanding it, we anticipate the future.
Holmes leaned back, eyes fixed upon Mr. Hargraves, and for a moment the room was silent, save for the faint ticking of the clock. Then, with deliberate clarity, he laid out the chain of deduction that linked past and present, the voyage of the Gloria Scott to the circumstances that had now brought Mr. Hargraves to Baker Street.
The pattern, Watson, is clear. The secrecy and betrayal aboard the Gloria Scott created a residue of consequence, a moral and practical imprint that persisted over time. Mr. Hargraves' father acted with foresight, documenting every irregularity, every sign of duplicity. Those records have ensured that the truth, though delayed, could not be concealed indefinitely.
Holmes, your reasoning is flawless. The interplay of character, evidence, and circumstance creates a tapestry that explains the past and predicts its impact on the present.
Exactly, Watson. And here we have the final revelation. The conspirators' identities, their motives, and the methods they employed are all laid bare. The integrity of Captain Scott and Mr. Hargraves' father preserved the vessel, the enterprise, and the moral outcome, despite the ambition and treachery that sought to compromise it.
Mr. Holmes, your insight confirms what my father sought to teach me, that careful observation, patience, and reason can preserve justice, even when immediate danger and deceit surround us.
I observed, as I often did, the subtle glow of satisfaction in Holmes's eyes, the unmistakable sign that deduction had fulfilled its purpose. And yet, as always, the triumph of reason was tempered by the shadows of human frailty.
Watson, remember this. The study of human nature, combined with meticulous observation, allows one to discern patterns that elude ordinary perception. The Gloria Scott is a case study in moral consequence, the resilience of integrity, and the inevitability of truth.
Holmes, it is humbling to witness such clarity. I find myself increasingly aware that the smallest detail, the slightest hesitation, or the briefest glance can contain the key to revelation.
Precisely, Watson. Every moment, every gesture, every word is a potential clue. And the astute observer, guided by reason and experience, can reconstruct even the most complex events.
As the evening deepened, I reflected upon the journey we had undertaken. From the fog bound streets of London to the distant decks of the Gloria Scott, we had traced the interplay of ambition, loyalty, and consequence across decades. Holmes, ever vigilant, had illuminated the intricate lattice work of human behavior with unparalleled precision. And I, faithful chronicler, felt the familiar thrill of witnessing genius at work, a thrill tempered by the profound weight of human morality revealed through deduction.
Gentlemen, I am forever grateful for your guidance and insight. The shadow of past transgressions has been lifted, and the integrity of my father's legacy preserved, thanks to your understanding and wisdom.
Mr. Hargraves, it is sufficient to act with foresight and reason. Human nature, when observed with care, yields the truth, and justice, though sometimes delayed, is inevitable.
And I, as ever, remain in awe of your methods, Holmes. The ability to perceive what others overlook, to deduce from the smallest detail, and to reconstruct the past with such clarity is nothing short of extraordinary. And so, the adventure of the Gloria Scott reached its conclusion. Secrets long concealed were brought to light, betrayals laid bare, and the interplay of character and circumstance revealed in full. Outside, the London fog continued its quiet vigil, indifferent to human affairs, yet within the walls of 221B Baker Street, reason had prevailed. Holmes, ever the sentinel of truth, had once again demonstrated the power of observation, deduction, and insight. And I, Dr. John Watson, recorder and witness, could only marvel at the brilliance of a mind that turned mystery into revelation, chaos into clarity, and the convoluted threads of human ambition into a tapestry of understanding.